A lot of conversation this morning about should Kevin Stefanski have given Shedeur Sanders the hook yesterday on that final series. I didn't have a problem with it. Nick wasn't, necessarily thrilled that Shedeur, even though despite going 0 for 5 on drives with 4 3-and-outs, he was sacked 5 times for what felt like 500 yards. And, the offense basically doing nothing with him on the field. It was a rough afternoon. This is not, and listen, I'm not going to sit here and say, Shedeur Sanders is a bust. He's not going to make it. He's a failure, blah, blah. No, none of that. It was a bad afternoon for him, and that happens. But also, too, I think that my biggest takeaway, and I mentioned this yesterday on my recap on YouTube, which I try and do those basically after every practice and after every game. I try and hop on YouTube with a little package of sorts with some best sound bites of the day, highlights, and things like that. I had mentioned my biggest takeaway from that game yesterday was that for really the first time, the organization's thought process and their feelings about these two rookie quarterbacks were validated. Because we had been hearing how superior Dillon Gabriel was to Shedeur Sanders, how much further along and ahead of Shedeur that Dillon was, right? And I'm sitting there like, I'm watching practice and I'm not buying that. But yesterday was really the, you know what, there might be a little something there. Listen, I've not been a fan of Dillon Gabriel, the football player. I'm a fan of Dillon Gabriel, the person. I think he's a great guy. I have I don't think he's a starting NFL quarterback. I still maintain that. I think he has the opportunity to become like the next Colt McCoy, where he's a quality backup that you can depend on. But you saw that yesterday. Dillon Gabriel looked more polished. He looked more prepared. Even though, again, a couple of his throws are going to get some people killed, you could see the difference in where they were, Nick. Where Dillon looks further along than Shedeur. And just because I say that doesn't mean I'm bashing Shedeur, doesn't mean I'm hating on Shedeur. It's just it is what it is. The production is the production. And look, Shedeur went against lesser competition and looked worse.
And it almost needed to be that way, right? Because had it not been that way, it's just such an ugly look for the organization who continues to prop up Dillon Gabriel because they spent a top 100 draft pick on him. Like, if your 3rd round pick didn't look as good as your 5th round pick, it's scary hours. It looks bad on the organization. And so they needed that. And I really think Browns fans, in an odd way, needed to see that performance from Shedeur Sanders, because you and I are optimistic about the outlook of what Joe Flacco could potentially do week 1 at the stadium. But say it does go south.
Well, I don't know if I'm optimistic. I'm trying to be optimistic.
Yeah, but don't things get weird if Flacco doesn't look good and half the stadium is wearing the jersey of a player who's going to be a game day inactive, and that's the number 12 Shedeur Sanders jersey. Yeah. So it almost felt like yesterday was like trepidatious in a lot of ways. It needed to happen for the universe, for Browns fans, for the coaching staff to kind of get back on the same page. The Dillon's a bit further along in this process, and there's nothing wrong with that. And he needed to be, because he was drafted ahead of Shedeur Sanders.
And by the way, he's going to play this year.
There's Shedeur Sanders.
Well, I don't know if we're going to see Shedeur this year. I think in a moment of, if you gave Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski truth serum, I think they would say, we don't want to play Shedeur Sanders this year. We want to redshirt him. Okay?
But that's so I still will,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
I still will slightly contest that a smidge.
You want him to play the season finale against the Bengals?
Maybe, or just some point.
Because what conclusions can you draw from that?
But my thing is, you've got a 1st round pick next year, 2 of them. And you know that one of them is going to be spent on a quarterback.
And if you play Shedeur Sanders, your odds of getting the pick you want might be increased.
So, but what was the season about?
Over your head?
I get that, because he played so bad yesterday that you would probably lose if you put him. Daryl, I get your joke. I wonder, though, like, you're going to draft somebody in the 1st round next year. Give me a name. Give me a 1st round. Cade Klubnik. Say they draft Cade Klubnik in the first round next year. You know,
I thought you were going to say Ted Clubberlang.
You know that the entire organization will then be tailored around Cade Klubnik, and Shedeur Sanders wouldn't genuinely get a true look, and they're trying to develop him. I get that, but that's why this whole 4-man thing never made any sense to me.
Let's go out to Bedford. Aaron, you're next up on the Fan. Good afternoon, or good morning, Aaron. How are you, bud?
Hey, Bill. How you doing? How y'all doing?
We're doing good. What you got for us, bud?
Well, I'm not too worried about Shedeur or Dillon Gabriel or even Flacco for that matter. I understand Flacco's, whatever you called him in terms of being a savior or something like that.
No, he's Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's our only hope, and he's the old guy.
Well, I think I thought the defense was supposed to be our savior, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
But
I'm not mistaken.
Defense don't score points. And if there's anything we've learned about Jim Schwartz's defense here in Cleveland, none of these guys can catch footballs.
Yeah, and once again, Kevin Stefanski calling the plays. I think the biggest issue is Kevin Stefanski. I don't care. He doesn't understand situational football. I think, and I'm not just blaming it on him. I think every coach that we've had for the majority of the time, even going back to Mike Patton, they try to pass the ball too much in the run situation. That's been our problem. But dealing with this team, I watched the Browns and, go all the way back. We can go all the way back to the 70s before it was the dog pound. All I'm saying is this. It seems like most of the coaches that come here, including Stefanski, pass the ball in the wrong situation. And we can go all the way back to wherever he started. It just seems like he doesn't understand. This is when you need to run the football. This is when you need to throw a screen pass. So if Obi-Wan Kenobi is Joe Flacco, what is Kevin Stefanski?
Well, in your world, I guess he's probably like Vader, right? Like,
he's the evil emperor. He's Palpatine.
Listen, I've got big time questions about Kevin Stefanski. Hand up, I do. You've got to win more than 3 games. To me, you got to win more than 4 games if you want to be the head coach of this football team going into 2026, and if you want to have your shot at drafting that blue chip quarterback in the draft in Pittsburgh. But I can't sit here and do the blame Kevin Stefanski thing after a preseason game. And I don't agree with how the Shedeur thing's been handled. And
it's a passing league. Of course they're going to throw the ball.
Guys, I can't do it. Not after a preseason game. Now, if that costs you September 7th against the Cincinnati Bengals, 216-474-0092, I'm sure Jeff Phelps and Tyvis Powell will entertain the Kevin Stefanski stuff, but not after preseason game number 3. They were trying. You know what?
Shedeur Sanders to try and win a preseason game yesterday. Do you understand that? He benched Shedeur to put Tyler Huntley in because he wanted to go win the preseason game.
He was trying to get out of there. He was trying to go see his wife. I don't really care that, throw the ball, run the ball. He was going against some guy named Dresser Wynn yesterday. They were just trying to get out of there.
One key piece of information we need is Ethan Posick.
Yeah.
Did not look good walking out of Huntington Bank Field yesterday. He walked right by me, had that big metal knee brace on his left knee. It was clearly designed to prevent him from being able to bend it all that much. He did walk out, albeit hobbled. He wasn't able to bend that knee, but it just was not a good sign that he left the stadium in that brace. So hopefully Kevin Stefanski will provide us with an update on his status, because Luke Whippler right now looks like he would be your starting center if, in fact, Posick is going to miss some time, which I suspect there's a pretty realistic chance that he's going to miss some time, which is really, really unfortunate. Because that game, look, first of all, the Rams brought like 48 guys. They just wanted to get in and get out. And same thing with the Browns. Like, obviously, Kevin tried to win the game at the end. He did, right, by getting Shedeur off the field, putting Tyler Huntley in there, driving down. Andre Schmidt kicks the game-winning field goal there. You put him in a little pressure cook over a situation just to see how he handles it. You come to find out we're going to have an issue here with kicker. Unfortunately, you thought it was all settled a couple years ago when they gave Dustin Hopkins that 3-year contract extension. He struggled last year. He's struggling this year in preseason as well, which is unfortunate. But, we were talking about this earlier, Nick, during the break. This is who Dustin Hopkins has been throughout his career. really that 23 season, a little bit of an aberration when he was bombing those 50-yard field goals. He was virtually perfect from beyond 50 that particular season for the Browns. Typically, he's 50% beyond 50, and he's in like the 70 percentile, inside from that. So it kind of feels like Dustin Hopkins is back, come back to who he usually has been throughout his career as a kicker.
Yeah. I wanted to remind people, they traded for him in 2023 because the Chargers didn't want him anymore. They went with their young kicker, Cameron Dicker, at that time. So they were just gonna cut Hop. So the Browns needed him because Cade York was that bad, and he was in his head so bad that you just needed anybody else. And then it just so happened to work out that trade looked super genius because Hopkins was incredible. He was 91.7% accurate on field goals. He attempted 36. He made 33 of them in 2023. And you mentioned it, he went on that bender of 50 plus. He was just automatic Johnson, but that was an aberration in his career. The Browns then gave him that contract extension. He hurt his hamstring in the Houston game that got the Browns really to the playoffs in 2023 with Joe Flacco. And it's really been all downhill ever since. Like last year, he was 18 of 27. If you're 18 of 27 as a kicker in the National Football League, you're getting cut. And the only reason why he wasn't released was because the Browns had just given him all of that guaranteed money, and they restructured his deal in such a way that you would be dealing with dead cap space for a kicker. And we already know we're going to be dealing with a little bit of a dead cap space scenario because of the quarterback thing. So Dustin Hopkins has been shaky really since the end of 2023, all of last year, and certainly it's been an issue this preseason. I'd like to get this thing nipped in the butt and figured out because we mentioned earlier in the show that we're trying to find ways to be optimistic about this Browns team, and it's going to be Joe Flacco, and it's going to be playing good defense and winning that field position battle. That means you're going to be winning a lot of these games on the margin. Hey, and if you're in a shootout with the Cincinnati Bengals week 1 and Dustin Hopkins is the kicker that makes this 53 and you trot him out there after Flacco does his job to get the team in field goal position to kick a game winner and he misses it, oh boy, I couldn't imagine what the phone lines will look like that Monday morning after that Cincinnati game. So it's one of those things that you got to figure out. They've had a hard time figuring it out, but it does matter.
Well, dead cap space was a finalist for my fantasy football team name this year.
What'd you end up going with?
Well, due diligence was also a finalist.
How about thought partners?
No, I went with ELF this. ELF this.
Okay.
That's But I dead cap space was right there.
That's a good. I kind of like dead cap space better.
Really?
Well, I mean, when we're talking dead cap space as it pertains to a kicker, I mean, it kind of shows you the position that this team is in, doesn't it?
Well, you are underselling one of the most important things that is shown up not only in this preseason but especially yesterday. Corey Bojorquez.
Oh my goodness, MVP.
I mean, he had the 60-yarder, hit at the 1, bounced back to the 5 when it was down. Had another one, it got muffed inside the 10, a 62-yarder, and it got down like at the 5-yard line as well. Like, mid-season form, that guy is in. So for all your, consternation here over the kicking situation, it's not nearly as dire as you're making it out to be here. You have an all-pro in Corey Bojorquez here.